Good morning. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be talking about polls that are the sort of the new thing that's come out with Google Plus. And joining me today for our conversation is Martin Shervington. So, hello, Martin. Where are you?
I am by the pool in Brazil.
In
I'm working.
Brazil.
I am still down here for a little while. Do you know what? I've been learning Portuguese this week. Apparently, it's getting better.
Very
I'm quite
good.
impressed. 3 words at a time, like eu estou, and then I can do present continuous. So I kind of have a little pattern. So I say, I am walking, I am eating, I am drinking. I've got many of these, and apparently, it's getting better.
Very good. So if I said como vai, what would you say?
Bang, bang. But apparently, my bang doesn't sound quite right. But I say,
How about tudo bem?
tudo bem.
Okay. Anyways, let's get started with the poll thing.
Please, somebody put a poll out saying how good or bad was my Portuguese accent or yours.
Now
That would be useful. Segue in.
Joining us in a
Good.
little while, we hope, will be Dustin Stout. It's very
Maybe
early
not.
in the morning for him. We'll see. So let's talk about what polls are and why we might want to use them. So Martin, do you have ideas as far as the psychological impact of polls and what might be a purpose for using them inside Google+?
They're another tool. I think that's the thing. I think it's really early days, and I put a guide out on Plus Your Business as to some of the things you could do. Should we talk just a tiny bit on the things you can do? Because
Sure.
you don't have to put an image. That's the first thing. So you could just ask people a question at the top, and then give people options, and they click them, and it's a very quick and easy route to do it. You've got up to 5 options. Or you could put one image, or you could match the images alongside particular options. And you can use GIFs. John Dietrich put a great one out, which is on the Plus Business site as well. And they are an engagement tool. But what I'm seeing more and more, they're a way of people having some fun, as well as finding out information. So I think that it allows for, say, another tool, another approach of engaging people in conversation, and people seem to like them. They enjoy them. I mean, Gideon put one out yesterday, and that had, are you Morpheus or are you Neo? And and what he was drawing out in that thread is a conversation that tends to something a bit more philosophical. And I think it depends on the people in the network that you have and the community that you're building as to what you can do. But what we've done with Plus Your Business is, when I've opened them up, is just say, well, say when I posted them, I've pinned them at the top of the community, and I've said, could you just let me know what you think about? And just got a very quick take from probably 15, 20 people, just to give me an indication of, is this thing something that you want, or if not, tell me in comments how to do it differently. And that's been useful. And I can see the example that you've given here. Am I surprised that Google Plus on Google got 84% on this particular poll? But that's a beautiful example of how to use the images alongside the options.
Yeah. They're not seeing that
that's
yet.
Lovely, isn't it?
Let me put that on.
Oh, you're not seeing it yet? Oh,
now
you put that on. What you're seeing is great. Well, there you go. So I'm still there. That is a perfect example of how to match images to the question, and we're seeing the results then. So you see the results once you've clicked. Now, this gives you a lot more. I want to be very David Amland about it for a second. A lot more granular information on people's perspectives. So in other words, instead of it just being a +1, I acknowledge, I relate, I click that +1 button, we can then drill down into a viewpoint. Now you can only choose one option, which is interesting.
Yeah, let me show how that works. Right now, yeah. I've voted for Google+, but let's say I wanted to go to Twitter. So I'm going to click on Twitter and watch what happens.
You know, if you click that button, then the whole system in your neighborhood is going to fall down.
My power will go out like yesterday. So I'll go back to Google+. So the little check mark moves, so you're able to come back after the fact, change your mind if you wanted to. But you're also able to, which I think is interesting, let me hide this little thing. We're also able to see how many people voted right here. This one right now says 436. And if we wanted to, up at the very top, we have another place that says View Results. So those are a couple places to find additional information. So I'm going to click on the View Results. actually.
And essentially, what you're going to find, and this is really, I think, kind of important for. I'm using it primarily in communities, as I say, but I think it's something. They're doing building work here. You can hear. I think that you can see lists of people, and you could add those people into. So if you click on the votes, you're going to flip it around. I think.
Right. The view results, I guess, is when you haven't voted yet. It would then show you the results, which you then can turn around, click the link, and. But I think just go click the link probably early on.
Just go click the link. And if you bring the little drop down that's there with a little pointy down bit, and you can see the percentages. And if you scroll down, you should be able to.
Well, let's go see
let's see what happens.
They like Facebook. So let's click.
Yeah, let's go and see who likes the Facebook. So you can then go and find out people's preferences. So let's look at it two ways. If you are the person who's what is it? The person who's polling, I guess. If it's you, then you get an indication. The pollster. I like that. Yeah, that's better. So if you're the pollster, then it gives you information. So you've got. Let's look at it. You've got the numbers. So you can instantly just tell them. That's easy. Then you've got a list of the people that are relating to that particular option. Great. But then you have all the other options that are, well, firstly, they're accessible to you. Excellent. But anybody else can then go and see who relates to that particular subject. So if you're looking at relationship building, let's say, I mean, in the early days, I've got a lot of comedy circles. And you might have, what is your favorite TV show? Now, if you are looking at building relationships with people that like, let's go for How I Met Your Mother, then this gives you an instant way to surface those people, and then you can have a more potentially targeted conversation with them. You could invite them to a community if you think that that's appropriate. You can do a lot of different things. So I think that this is a starting point, and you can hover over it, obviously, and you can add these people in. Or you could be shifting between circles, and I think that using that alongside circles is going to be a very useful way of segmenting or differentiating and having conversations with the right people that are interested.
Sure, and I imagine, or I would expect or hope that additional tools such as Circuloscope may be able to help us gather into a circle in the future, because this is still new.
Yeah.
Those voted for this option or that option or whatever, and just build circles based on that. I think that would be a wonderful addition. You hearing that, Christine? I hope you're watching. So let's take.
And the reason why is because otherwise we're doing it manually.
Yeah.
Because we can do exactly the same thing. So all a tool does, is it allows you to do a job quicker than if you had to do it by hand. So.
And as an example, if you're trying to find out in your community, and we've got a couple questions I'll bring up in a moment about the communities. If you're trying to find out in your community who can join a Hangout on Air you're doing on a certain date, and they vote for which ones they can do, you already know which ones that you might want to invite specifically and things like that. So it could be a very valuable tool in many ways. Let me bring up.
It's very much a guided conversation, isn't it? Really, I mean, that's what you're doing. Is you're allowing people straight away. You're just allowing them to choose the option based upon what you're trying to achieve.
Right.
Potentially. Or you can just have fun with them and just explore. I mean, that's the other side. We're looking at all options.
Sure. So let me bring up a couple of quick questions from the viewers. This is from BL asking, will we be showing how to add artwork? And I will show that in a moment. I was going to feature Dustin when he got here, but if he's not going to make it, then I'll do it. But also, can polls include animated GIFs? And we've already said at this point, yes. They show up as the small ones, but let me ask you a question, Martin. Do you know if the main image, if it was just one big image?
I didn't try that, but I assume so, because all it would be is a JPEG or PNG. I shouldn't see any reason why not.
You mean a GIF?
So in a second.
It would have to be a GIF.
Or it would have to be a GIF. It should be. So yeah, it would be. No, it would be the same. Yeah. It shouldn't be different. However, can I just say, the guide that I've got on Plus Your Business and said to BL, I've given full instructions, even though Ronnie's going to take you through on how to add the images and how to make sure you have the right one with the right options as well.
Well, let's show that guide for just a second here.
Okay.
That's right here. Here's your guide.
There you go.
And as you had said, there's a lot of information that you've given here with step-by-step help. For example, when we're building a poll, we move over here on the far right where it says poll. And then that brings you to a dialog that looks like this, which is where you're able to add in your graphic if you wanted one. And as you say, it is optional. And you're giving us details here, which is nice. You can do up to 5 images, and you can have up to 5 choices and things like that. And here's an example of a poll with no imagery at all, just the question. And actually, I don't see a question there.
No, but you can add that. You can guess that bit. Yeah.
Right. And all right, so we get the idea. So let's come back to some of those questions that were brought up by the viewers. I want to bring.
And
up
if you go on down, if you keep on scrolling down, just so everyone knows, you've got all of the images alongside it. It gives you all of the instructions and shows you how to build the ones with like Dustin has with 5 images, even though Dustin's not here yet.
Right. And we've got a link to Martin's post inside the details area of this event page if you're looking on there, or I'll also make sure it's on the YouTube link area if you're watching on YouTube. So
I'm assuming somebody's testing the GIF out, aren't they? They're just checking. You should be. There's no difference between uploading a GIF and a JPEG and a PNG. That's the thing on Google Plus, unless they're too large, in which case there is an issue. But that's the same with large files anyway.
Okay. I'm going to bring up a question or comment from Cindy Harley, saying she lacks the ability to use polls in a Hangout on Air, and I think this is a misunderstanding from a lot of people. We don't have that. We don't have a polling function within Hangouts on Air directly. You have to use a third-party tool, like there's one I know of, which is called Webinar Jam, that allows you to do that. But that might be something coming in the future. So her question, ultimately, which we can't see on screen, is saying, is there a place to do polls outside of events? And the real answer is yes. They don't happen actually in events. That's not even an option for us right now. I'd love to see it as part of a Hangout on Air event if it was part of the event page. But wherever you can make a post on Google+, you can do a poll. But you're inside of an event, you're not actually making a post there because the event is the post. Hopefully that answers that. There's another one here, though, that I thought was very interesting. And Martin, I know you might have a higher level of interest as well in this. This is from Heather Crafter, saying recently she shared a poll in her community. Now, this is a public community, and it was for her community. So she said many votes came from people not in my community because they were able to see it on the outside. And they weren't even in her circle. So she's wanting to know, can she make a poll private in a community and only visible in that community? And I've done some experimentation, but go ahead.
Well, I think if it's a public community, it's a public poll, and anybody that finds it, the same as you can +1 content in a community if it's public, even if you're not a member. You can't comment, but you can +1 the post. I from the sounds of it, would say it's going to be the same. And they are public, then you can't restrict that to community members only. Is that right? Ronnie, you found the same?
That is what I found from my testing, yes. Very good. And if you do it in a private community, then the poll stays within the community, and it can't be shared outside. So what I tried to do is I tested in a public community, putting in a poll and disabling shares. And that worked for part of the equation. In other words, no one could share it outside to another place, but other people could still see the poll from the outside and vote on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's bring up another.
I think that's really important. They're public, and it means if you vote on something, if they are okay, the ones that are public, so anybody can see what you voted for. So realize it becomes part of the community, the information. If you share it, for instance, just to a circle and disable reshares, then it's only going to be those people that are going to be able to vote on it and see the results of that vote, and they can't reshare it.
Right. So I guess as a workaround for what Heather was asking, if you're in a public community, well, help me with this, Martin, see if I got it. If you're in a public community and you also have a circle that contains all the members in that community, and you post the poll inside the community, but don't share it to the community, you share it to that circle.
Okay, so do it the other way first. So what you'd be doing is you'd share the poll to the circle first. You'd take a link to that poll, and you would then share that link into the community for people to be able to access. Is that what you mean, Ronnie?
Yeah, I think it is. Let's say we share it first to the circle of community members.
That's the thing. That's the first thing to know, is that the audience comes. You can't juggle with the audience settings after. You decide who's going to see it first,
okay,
and then you decide on how you're going to distribute it or have access to it in the future.
Okay, so I'll work that out also, and I'll report some results to some people. Now, here's another thing you just brought up. There are certain things you can do after you've posted, and other things you can't. So, for example, changing the audience, who gets to view it, is not changeable once you've posted it. Another thing that I've noticed is you can't change the images or the questions after the posting.
I believe you can delete images, actually. I think you can, I think you can delete the images, but that was just because I came across it.
Okay.
But you can't add them. You can't change them. And if you think of the reason why, is otherwise people could switch around the images and misinterpret the existing votes and what have you. So it makes sense.
You get rickrolled or some other term like that. Okay, so but I do know that at the very top you can actually put a lot of text. Some people think they're limited to a certain limited short number of words at the very top or the beginning, and you can make it a full-on post. It's just the questions are limited as far as how many characters, and I don't know what that number is. So I'm going to bring up a comment from Sheila Hensley saying, do the results of the polls remain as long as the post is active? And I believe they do.
I believe they do too.
Yeah, and then it says, I guess we don't have a lot of history, but that's our best answer.
There wouldn't seem to be a reason why they wouldn't be. It's a public post, and it's had an action. It's a bit like +1's being sustained. You see the person's name, face, and the action on because it hasn't been deleted.
Right, and then here's a question from Scott. Assuming that everyone gets one bite of the apple, so if you voted once, can you return and change your vote? The answer is yes, you can change your vote.
You can.
Let's see.
So that might be something that happens in the future, is that we might have a one-off vote that can't be changed. You never know. But right now, it's as it is.
Yeah, and I do see a high value for something that we don't have quite yet. And I'm hoping, and I'm not saying that I know it's coming. I'm hoping that we'll have the ability to bring polls into a event, like a Hangout on Air event, maybe below the details area, where you can ask people when you're coming to this event, here's a question, or you might even throw in a poll in the middle of the event and change it out.
So that would be that's really like an embed sort of. Just like you can embed a YouTube video into the advanced link section. That kind of thing in the future would be handy.
You mean
so
like
you could drop a link in? Yeah.
Like instead of the trailer, you would actually have the poll?
No, when I talk about doing a live event, so you go to the advanced options on the event, and then you go for see more options. Yeah. I'm just saying that dropping something in like that kind of functionality, you could take a poll from somewhere else that was public and have that there.
Okay.
I'm just thinking. That's
using the traditional event, not the scheduled Hangout.
Oh, Ronnie Bincer.
Well, yeah. They're different.
Correct, though. Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm looking through other questions here. They're coming in. People are asking, where's Dustin? We don't know where Dustin is. He must have slept in. It is pretty early there. So here's a question from Dave Williams saying, can you vote privately? And no, not unless the poll is a private poll. And even then,
it's not. It's seen by the people that have access to that poll.
Right.
They're not private. And that's something which has come up a few times. And it's Google. There's a lot. It's transparency, really. You can see what's going on, and they're encouraging that. Views, you put your name and your click to it. Interesting enough, it's a slide to side. Let's say thumbs down, don't thumbs down, thumbs up if you're going to thumbs up the video. But the thumbs down function on YouTube is a private vote. You can't see it. You don't know who's done it. And the same as a thumbs up is. Mm-hmm. There's a relationship between the +1s and the thumbs up. But the thumbs down, you haven't got a clue. So in a way, it's it's understanding the difference in culture and the difference of technology and systems. And Google have said on Google+, we're going to have everybody to be able to see what you are voting and put your name to it. And I think that's an interesting cultural difference between that and that thumbs down option, which has been a long history on YouTube.
Right. So let me bring up a question here. Do the polls allow more than one question? And definitely they do. Do they allow up to five questions?
Yeah.
And what I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the visuals for what Dustin has built for us and do that right now. So Martin, why don't you entertain us for a second?
Okay, so I'm not going to jump in the pool, but it won't take that long till Ronnie's brought it up.
Yeah, I'm here. Okay.
It's not
So here we go.
When you say a second, you literally meant entertain us for a second.
A second, yes. Okay. So this is what we've got. Dustin has created this for us, and I'll make sure that he gives us a link so we can get access to both of them. This particular one is actually part of your post, Martin.
Yeah, I've embedded it.
Yeah, and he made another one since then, which you might want to, embed in your post as well if Dustin's cool with that. But
yeah.
Here's the difference. This is the size, or think of it this way. It's a graphic representation of what you're going to want as far as design. Because I've noticed when people were starting these polls, they didn't realize that the buttons were going to cover over the picture. And so because of that, they lost a little of the imagery that might have actually been very important when people say, you think it's important, the thing that's down at the bottom of the picture. Well, that's being covered up by the poll buttons. So if you have a picture, these are the dimensions or the layout, and the two buttons would show on the bottom here if you had two buttons. And here's another version which has many more buttons, 5 of them, and he's giving the full height is at right now approximately 1,036 pixels. But what's important is to know where these buttons start, and he's saying that it's on the right here. It says 241 pixels are visible above the buttons. So you're going to want to design your images such that you have a fair amount of either blank space or free space that's okay to get covered up by buttons.
That's very useful, isn't it? So I put the earlier version. I will go back and add that one in as, assuming it's been shared, as an embedded post on that blog post as well. Yeah.
Okay, so
well done, Dustin. I hope you're watching this in the future. You did an awesome job. We thought you were going to be here but it's okay. It's all right, man. It's all right. Me and Ronnie, we're just going to talk. Man.
We're just going to talk. Okay, but there are
any questions?
Yeah, there are some questions. I'm going to bring some more up here. This is from Nazim. What impact does polls have in search, if any? Any thoughts?
Yeah. Well, the thought would be let's look at titles. And Nazim's been doing social SEO this week in the academy, and blog it's a Google Plus post. So the way I would look at it is the title as if it's a blog post on your website. It's the same. It gets indexed. It's got its own web page, and you're going to have the content. So you're going to have the same potential for saying what that thing is about, and then the image is an image. I don't know whether the options, and see that's kind of, if we got really geeky with it, that the options are refined and could relate back to something around the post. So that'd be worth testing. Certainly, everything's worth testing. But it's a blog post. It's a Google Plus post, which acts like a blog post, so it can get indexed. So presumably, we can test. Just if we take if somebody wants to do this now, we can test this out. Find some of the polls, and let's see if they surface in search, because they should. I wouldn't see any other reason. I wouldn't see any reason why not.
Right, and that may mean you, instead of just putting the words that you want people to vote on in the poll buttons, you might want to actually include them in the text that's above, because that will probably be crawled better than the buttons, I would think.
But I don't know. Who's going to do the experiment? Who's on the thread that wants to do the experiment on that? But you just take the whole title and see if it surfaces.
Right, and then report back to us in the comments, and I will do my best to find it. But let me bring up some other questions we've got. This is from Lon McClure. Can a poll have a deadline? And where, in other words, where no more votes or changes can be entered after a certain time. What are your thoughts on that?
Apparently not. I read somewhere that you can't stop it. You can't end it. The only way you can do it is to delete the post. It will stay open as long as the post is alive.
Right. So there could be a deadline by deleting it, but before you delete it, you probably want to take a screenshot of the votes so that you could present that as here's what the results were if you actually wanted others to know the results.
Yeah. but they do stay open, which is interesting. I mean, again, that could be another feature. What's great is that Google have given us something, which I think we've hardly started exploring. I know I've hardly explored what we could be doing with these things because it's about play and creativity. But what we often find is there's an additional functionality which comes later and later and later. And those sorts of things we might find get rolled out in a while.
Right. So a question from Greg asking, could we put a poll into an event using the same workaround I described for communities? And in essence, you could find out who says they're coming to your event and attending, and build a circle with that, and then share the poll to that circle, but it's not going to be visually part of the event. Does that sound about right, Martin?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm looking.
There was nothing more. It's, yeah.
That's good. That's good. So Sean Grace is saying super helpful tips on the image dimensions for polls, and that's we can thank Dustin Stout.
Well done, Dustin. Well done, Dustin.
All right, and then I'm looking again for a couple more that we might bring up because we're nearing the end of our time here. Someone's asked.
All right, but we 26 minutes just the two of us.
Yeah.
We thought we were going to have Dustin instead in the show. You know.
Right. Right. So this is Billy Snyder asking or mentioning: Is there a way to design a post and view it before you share it with everyone to make sure it looks okay? And I have a suggestion for that, but it's not what you're here. And what it is you post it to yourself. You have to make it post it to yourself, then you get to see what it looks like. If it's
what is the but? What is the but on that, Ronnie Bincer?
What is the but?
There's a but.
The but is you have to start over again when you're wanting to do it
again
publicly. Yeah.
That's the but.
Right.
So you have to do it twice. You have to share it to yourself, check it out, and then do it again.
I do that regularly.
This is why knowing what the dimensions are and doing all the prep work first will save a bit of the process.
Certainly.
But can I just add an extra bit in?
Sure.
Which is why? Why are you doing a poll? And I think that's almost the starting point, is what is it you're seeking to achieve? What information are you looking for? If you have the result, I mean, I did organizational psychology, and we had to do research sometimes, and it was kind of a good training, but it's allowed me to look at things and go, oh, hold on. If I have the votes, and let's say we have 86%, if Google Plus is their favorite network, what does that mean? What can I then do with that? And very often, as a blogger, I'll go, okay, well, let's look at the people. How many people in my circles voted yet? How many people that went to my circles voted? And you can start to extrapolate and storytell from that point. So it's like, for me, it's like, if we have this poll and have this experience and we have information in comments, what does that do? Is it relationship building? Is it that we're seeking to understand and differentiate? Is it then something we can tell a story with in the future?
Right. I'm going to bring up a question here from Neil. And Neil is saying, if I embed a poll on my site and delete the poll. Now, at this point in time, I don't...
You can't. Right. You can't embed polls.
Yeah, I was going to say, at this point in time, we're not able to embed polls on your site. In other words, the embed...
I thought it would be there. That's something that I too thought was going to be there, which might well come in the future.
Yeah. And just so you'll know, right now, we're talking to you live on the 24th of October, 2014. If you're watching this video later, many of the things we're talking about that are not part of polls may be part of polls because they're hearing the feedback or they're modifying and making things better with the polls. So they could.
So make sure you thumbs up the video. Thumbs up the video if you're watching it on YouTube. Don't thumbs down because it's old. It's only in October. So come on.
Exactly.
But I think the whole area, it's wonderful that we've got a new tool. It's cool.
Yes.
It's great. I mean, the mood around this one is and what I see in the stream has been very positive.
Yes, very positive, except for those that said, I've got too many polls in my life, get them away. But that, I think, has subsided because when they first came out, there was a lot of people, and when I say first came out, I think it's about 2 weeks now. There's a lot of people doing a lot of polling. And I think we will now settle down a little bit and have that be more of a part of the normal posting process instead of such a big feature thing. So I'd like to thank you, Martin, for joining us.
Can I just an extra thing?
Sure.
The last thing I was just going to say is that also keep in mind you've got the option of comments, and you can close comments. Sometimes you can close reshares, or you could have them open. Comments allow for another aspect of engagement. Once people have chosen that option, you can be saying, okay, let me know why you chose that. So again, if you want to have more of a conversation, then comments, it's not just about the post, the poll, it's about comments. Thanks, Ronnie.
Yes, and one last thing, Tim is asking, so you cannot share a poll. That is not correct. Unless the pollster has disabled reshares, you are able to share a poll just like you can share a post. So there we go. That's our quick overview, relatively quick overview. Thanks for joining me, Martin. Dustin, we missed you, but we love you anyway.
I'm going to have to interrupt. I know you want to wrap up. I'm going to have to interrupt. There is a qualifier on that last question.
Oh.
You can't, if it's only shared to a circle, for instance, even if you haven't disabled reshares, the only way you can share it is if it's public.
Okay, so a public poll can be shared. If it's not...
Yeah. If it's not public, you can't share it. That's from my exploration. You can also disable reshares of a public share of a poll. So you have the options there.
Yes.
And I think I'll put that in the guide. In fact, there's a wonderful help article, and I think I'll link to it, a Google help article, which explains some of the background things on privacy around this. So it's a very good question, because it's a bit more complex. It's a bit more complex than what we've got currently with general posts.
Okay, great. And everyone, enjoy your time with polls. If you've got questions, please leave them in the commenting area of this event or on YouTube, and we'll do our best to get back to them. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend coming up. I was going to say day, but it might be evening where you're watching. So enjoy your pollster activity and have a wonderful afternoon, morning, evening, weekend, and we'll talk to you again in the near future. Bye now.
Hold on.